Okay. Right. Let's
You're watching It's Life Live with your host, Juan Lee and Oliver Marcel. Come join us for enriching, enlightening, encouraging, and thought provoking conversation. Let's go.
It is a pleasure to be with you, Juan, and I am certainly looking forward to a spirited discussion with you, like we always have. And, and I do welcome you back. I'm glad you have gotten past that issue, and I've got fingers, eyes, toes crossed that you are completely on the mend. Hmm. Uh, hey, this thing takes a minute. It takes a minute. Yeah, very nice. Yeah. All right, let's do that. In the abstract, on theory and system, that is exactly what we would look for in a viable, vibrant, expansive, and enduring society. We would look for an organizational linkage that establishes a commonality of purpose, that purpose giving us a meaning, those meanings providing value, and that value providing a commitment to a process of elevation, expansion, and enhancement. Hence, in the society, you are theoretically seeing the mirrored image of the individuals who comprise it. Every societal structure is going to have as its root a consolidation of individuals who are two things: like-minded and sensitive to change capacity. Growth is the element that provides for the confirmation and the assurance that the society itself is going to be inclusive, is going to have the respect for the diversity or the talent, skill sets, opinions, attitudes, belief systems, religiosity, spirituality that all individuals comprise, because they have acknowledged that there is a stability in accepting the well-being, the wellness of this unit that they are creating. That's where endurance comes into play. That's where sustainability exists. And this is where you get into the structural concept of what fragmented means. Not every individual that is comprising the societal structure we see in the context of our discussion today is united in that definition of what functionality and viability means. In essence, there is a viewpoint, there is a belief system, there is a commitment to that viewpoint and belief system that is not being effectively aligned with the compositing members that society has to draw its energy and its emphasis from. We're not agreeing to talk with each other. We're not agreeing to accept that there is even a need to talk with each other. Here's where, again, we started the conversation, and the specific word that I used was abstract, in the abstract. Okay. And the finer sense of that abstract, that is a viewpoint of how we are going to measure a terminal objective. The ingredients that make that abstract now become the form, shape, and methodology of the society is what we are working towards today. You've seen it written in words before in President Lincoln's address, building a better union. Okay, building a better union, building a better united sense of the meaning and purpose of what we the people, that's why those three words are so big in our Constitution, what we the people have acknowledged as our pathway forward. We haven't gotten past that. Oh, absolutely. And here's exactly where you are attacking the core issues that are on an individual basis that are reflective of the society you live in. See, a society, Simon Asher is given credit for being the pioneer of what is called human or human environmental psychology, person and environment psychology. The premise is that a society is based on the individuals that comprise it. If the individual whom he or she is has a centralized acknowledgement, an attitudinal design towards what it is they view themselves as being, this is what's being communicated into the structures and organizations that they will interact with. Those structures and organizations that we're talking about are what we call communities. So the individual becomes a part of a community. At a micro level, the individual, the macro level, the larger society becomes a reflection of how that individual sees him or herself, incorporating in, engaging in vibing with, and ultimately achieving viability within the context of that organization being the society. This is a struggle. That's exactly why the two components of empathy and sympathy are so significant in defining what relationship design is. Empathetic, I have the ability to appreciate whom you are. Sympathetic, I have the ability by that empathy to understand and accept what that means to you. And to exactly empathy and sympathy. If I have not aligned myself to the core belief, the principles, the values, and the decision making that are at the core of empathy, then my sympathetic acknowledgement of what I'm engaging in will not have meaning and purpose. Which is precisely what is occurring in the structure that we have established as the organizational design for a society. It starts with the individual, it expands to the outer rim, which is your immediate family. It moves beyond to the assets and the resources that are supporting your community. And then ultimately, the larger functional perspectives that the governmental resources can bring into stabilizing that society. So you see, at a micro level, the individual at that level, if he or she does not have an empathetic and a sympathetic acknowledgement of their purpose and meaning, and if you want to use the other words that would best describe it at the individual level, we're talking now specifically about the term self esteem. If the individual does not have a healthy, integrated sense of self esteem at his or her level, then that distortion influences how they view themselves in the alignment and interactions to the individuals they are encountering. Mhm. Oops. I hear you fine. I got you. Oops. Hmm. Yeah, I'm hearing you. Okay. Uh, oh, yeah, I'm good. I'm good with you. Okay. Individual that is going to be a member of a society has one thing in common. They are all born into the human race. Now, let's use that as ground zero. Born into human race means that they are born into a connectivity and a consistency that we call humankind. Principles, values, a sense of congruity, a sense of uniformity, a sense of pride, a sense of esteem will be things that are the accumulative process of that individual's growth and development. From the point of conception until roughly the age of 10, what is happening to that individual is that he or she is becoming inculcated and indoctrinated into a belief system. This is what is sometimes referred to as mentoring and nurturing or parenting. The principles, the values, the beliefs, the communicative interaction, the physicality of interaction between parent, child, mentor, mentee is during this developmental stage, again, conception until roughly 10, the foundation for what that individual will internalize as four things: his or her core principles, his or her core beliefs, his or her basic decision making process, and his or her sense of connectivity. So, core principles, values, beliefs, basic decision making emerge by the age of 10 in the individual born into the unit that is the first indice of a society, the familial structure. How effectively that individual is given the opportunity to internalize those core principles, those values that lead to beliefs, those beliefs to become the underpinning for decision making, will transition into what are called the transitional developmental stages of an individual, roughly the ages of 10 to 17, where they are now internalizing the meaning and purpose of their beliefs, principles, values, and their decision making. What's critical is that at same time, the individual is being exposed to the external elements of society. Those external elements are the next door neighbors, the kids that they're going to hang out with in the on the block, the individuals that they're going to engage with in schools, in whatever social settings they're partaking in, whatever they're getting their media exposure on, TikTok, WhatsApp, YouTube, what they are all having the opportunity as the individual to process how their principles, their beliefs, their values, their decision making either aligns itself with or rejects these external elements. And those things that have the capacity to divide us. And let me make sure we understand very clearly. It is the choice that you make that leads to the decision you reinforce. So if you are choosing to allow something to divide you, your decision will be, it divides me. And that is one of the most significant vulnerability points that we encounter whenever we're talking about organizational relationships and the communication process that exists between. If you are not willing to acknowledge that, you can work with the belief system that someone else has, the value system that someone else has. If you are saying to yourself, I can't do this, that is a bridge too far for me to cross, then your decision will be narrowing your scope of interactivity and alignment. You're going to decide, I'm not going to work with this person. And it is a choice. People will tell you your decisions are significant. I beg to differ. Your choices are the most significant value you bring to the exchange that we call the art of communication, the active responsive teaching. That is communication, because it is your choice that's going to reinforce the decision that's being made. So where I'm going to give you the 90-10% ratio. 90% of it is that. The other 10% of it is always going to be the unknown that you have to come to terms with as you begin to realize that either the choice that I made was not the most appropriate one I could have made, and am I willing to change or not? So 90% of this is the mechanics of what communication speaks to, because it's during that formative stage, again, at 10 to roughly 14, that 10 to roughly 17, because right around the age of 14, you've internalized what's going to be your element of self-esteem, which consists of respect, purpose, meaning, and clarity. When I know who I am, I can understand what my purpose is. Once I know what my purpose is, I can see the meaning that it brings to my life, and that clarifies the choices that I make, because those choices that I make are the decision that reinforce the respect I have for myself. Do you see the circle that I've created? The more aware you are of who you are, and when I'm talking about who, I'm talking in an acronym, why and how. You organize your thoughts. You orient yourself to person, place, time, circumstance. And here's the key word: you operationalize. You make that happen. The more, and here's the M, mindful you become. So you go from a who in Whoville to a whom. Okay, with all due respect to Dr. Seuss, I had to throw that one in just to give you a little. Oh, yeah. Now understand, Juan, what you just said. Look at how important that is, your perspective. You're forming your perspective of the person you are between the ages of basically 5 to 14. By 10, you got beliefs, principles, values. You know how to make a decision. We're rounding out your self-esteem. The more I do things that are beneficial, productive, and meaningful for me, the higher my level of attachment to the person I'm becoming. Hey, that worked. I like that. I want to do that again. That did not work. Mom told me, go in the room, put that bar of soap in your mouth, and I didn't do that again. I could see the difference between this and that. Absolutely so. You are absolutely hitting that directly on point. And by saying that, you just articulated where this starts: the mentor and the mentee, the parent and the child. If the parent, if the mentor has a skewed idea of how this process works, has a disorientation towards the significance and the meaning that this process brings, then, without getting too vulgar in it, you're spitting in the face of your ancestors. And in making that stance and saying enough is enough, having the withdrawal, the fortitude, and the courage to move it to that next level. You know, we we like to, we like to use the descriptive metaphor of describing life, society, as a relay race. The first guy, first woman gets a baton and they set the pace. The second takes the baton from the first and extends the speed and the strength of that pace. By the time you get to the third, you've established a sense of confidence and trust in your ability to beat whatever objective time you have in play, so that when you hand that baton to that fourth leg in that relay, you're taking it on home. Every society has, in that metaphoric relationship, the functionality of the second and third baton carrier in that process. If the second sees that his or her pace is a little slow, they need to step it up. They need to be aware of, these are the issues that are preventing us from beating that time. I take that into the society. If you see that we are not objectively, progressively, and viably accomplishing the objectives that we know we have the capacity to achieve. And this is where your history becomes important. This is why we used to have storytellers who would sit us down on the block and talk to us about the times when. Now there's a move afoot in Project 2025, where you want to take away the electronic storytellers. You don't want to have access to the history. You don't want to have access to the vibrance of that history. And by virtue of that, you want to confuse the second and the third leg in that relay race. You want to throw them off course. And that's absolutely correct. That's the key. That's the key. Was not in the Cracker Jack box. No. Okay, I'm a product of Charleston, South Carolina. I matriculated in HBCUs, North Carolina Central University, BA in general psychology, and a minor in physics and math. I had to be a geek. I was an NROTC scholarship guy. I would later serve in the United States Navy for 21 years. I retired as a commander, and I decided to go back to the HBCU experience to get my master's at Norfolk State University in community and clinical psychology. I utilized that master's in community clinical psychology to take a position with the Department of Corrections, and I served as a senior mental health services provider for a period of 24 years. And in that process, I took my PhD, my doctorate degree, which is a Doctor of Strategic Leadership from Regent University. So I come at you from a perspective of having seen it from the military and the civilian side, consolidating them in something that has always talked about how we build communities and how we resuscitate through building communities the purpose and meaning of humankind. You know, Charles Darwin said it's not going to be the fastest, it's not going to be the strongest, it's going to be the society, the individual who can adapt that will survive. The organism that adapts survives. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Divisive, divisive, divisive. The quickness of it is to simply tell you that this goes all the way back to the very first time we as a people came to this country in chains. We have not reconciled that issue. And, Alice Walker in The Color Purple tells you Miss Seeley's curse. Till you do right by me, nothing that you touch is going to have the ability to have prosper, meaning, and value. We've been struggling with that. We are going through what has been most commonly referred to in my universe of academia as a conscious level change, a sea state change. We've been running with this for basically the last 120 years or so. We have always known that there has been some ecological boundary that exists in us. And when I say ecological, I'm talking about the environmental aspect of it, as well as the social significance in the employment opportunities, the value, the centricity of how individuals are brought in together. That has been the struggle. We brought it to the attention when a guy from our not too distant past stepped up as a senator and said, I don't see red America, I don't see blue America, I see one America. And he went on to become the first Black president. That is where, in an instant, we were now confronted with the possibility that there can always be something better. There's a higher level of achievement associated with this. Now, I know politics don't get into this, but I'll throw it out there straight up. I'm an independent, and I learned how to be that way as a military person. I'm looking for who does what and who's moving this country in a direction that is compatible with, here it is again, my core principles, values, and the meaning that they have in my decision making. I saw Joe Biden accept the responsibility of being his vice president. And I saw President Biden, through that decision, reach a point where he now would take on the first Black female vice president. So in many ways, what we're seeing is in the actualized application of a tectonic moment of change, a conscious level of change, the fact that that guy, Joe Biden, has forced us with a Black president and a Black female vice president to acknowledge the fact that there is meaning and purpose to what Shirley Chisholm was telling us years ago. What Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, Medgar Evers died for. We are at that point now where it was not the knee on George Floyd that finally broke the camel's back. It was the realization that when we could hold up our fists and say things like knees are made for kneeling, not for killing, when we could wrap our arms around the others who have died along that way. We got now the most recent one that comes to mind is a mother in her kitchen boiling water. And I don't want to step on my fraternal brother Ben Crump's prosecution of that case, but you got a tape that says point blank, I will shoot you in your face if you don't put that boiling water down. Where's the gun? Okay. Yeah, you see, you know, uh, you know, you know, no, it's on camera and it's, at best, I'm not precisely, not at all, not at all, not at all. And there's your fragmented society. But what it does is it tells you now is precisely the time. Chickens have come home to roost. They're looking at you in the face now. Yeah. And this is why it's so essential that we take advantage of these things that we have been, people will tell you that a gun in the house is the most dangerous weapon. No, it's that cell phone that you got. It's that Wi-Fi that you have. Because now you have instantaneous accessibility to information. Now is the time when we consolidate what that information means to us. And we have individuals now who are realizing, social engineers like me, we have individuals who are getting into the structure of organizations like you are, that are saying the clear journey and the clear path forward is going to be how we now decide. And the first way that you make a decision is to become more educated about your choices. And that's exactly why we're podcasting tonight. The first thing that you do and the most immediate thing you do is turn up the volume on your television when the evening news is coming on and listen to what they are saying. And ask yourself, does that make sense? Does that really make sense? And then you can, and once you get to that stage, then you can do the thing that I learned from my grandfather, who was a Baptist minister. He said, angels get dirt under their fingernails. Now you got to go out there and you got to be willing to get some dirt under your fingernails. Yeah. You got to be willing to go out there and get through this muck and mire that we're in. And that's why VP Harris's focus on, I'm looking at the future and I'm not dealing with the past. She doesn't, I said it bluntly, she's doing it more articulatedly, but that future is where we are now. We already know, we already know that in a word, what we've experienced has not been great. What are we going to do about it now? Hey, you gotta, this is a PG rated audience that we're talking to. Well, yeah. Yes. Because until we make that progression, society goes nowhere. Because exactly. And that's always going to be the point, you know? Oh, absolutely. One of the one of the core components when we're talking about human system management, one of the core components is understanding that there's a distinct difference between emotions and feelings. Emotions tell you to pay attention to something. Feeling tells you how you're going to process what paying attention means. Because feelings are going to influence your acknowledgement of what it is you want as opposed to what you need. You know, until you are willing to do what you need to do, you are not going to accomplish what you want. Now, I'll unpackage that. Yeah, I'll unpackage that by saying, of all of the clusters of emotions that we have, and we have several, the one that is the most significant is fear. Fear, fear is so significant because fear tells you precisely what it is about your environmental circumstance you have the ability to overcome because it defines it for you. Classic example. If you were to come into my office and tell me, Doc, I'm afraid of cats, why would I talk to you about being afraid of water? You told me you're afraid of cats. We already know what it is we fear. We fear that we will not be valued. We fear that no one will accept us. We fear that no one cares about us. We fear that we're forgotten. We fear that we'll never be able to. And you can fill in that blank with any words you want. Fear tells you what you have the ability to overcome because it defines it as a clearly acknowledged focal point. Your challenge, your need is to accept that challenge by realizing that if I know what it is I'm dealing with, I'm not confused by the things I'm not. If I know what it is I'm dealing with, I'm not confused by the things I'm not, means that I am making the choice to establish the need to clearly understand what I have to do to achieve what it is I seek. And that's a three-step process. You think, you critically think, and you reason. Because what you think is mirrored in the way you behave. That is the symbiotic relationship, the alignment between thinking and behavior. We call it reality assessment. The way you think is the way you behave because that's your reality. What you what you understand in thinking, how you have defined the conditions and limitations, what you understand in thinking is what you accept as the meaning and purpose of this event. This is what's happening. Now, when you take that mindset of accepting what it is you understand, then you have just established what you can achieve when you will adjust your behaviors in the following way. You will align yourself to what it is you understand. You will adjust your behavior to what it is you accept, and you will achieve what it is you acknowledge. That's how the work in becomes a product out. That's where this starts. This is the enlightenment moment that exists now. This is the big bubble of an individual head that we usually call that light bulb moment. And that journey facilitates the meaning and purpose of that moment. Now, take that a step further. If I have the confidence to take that step, because they tell you all journeys start with a single step. If I have the confidence and trust in myself to take that first step, and I achieve in that first step the objective that I sought, then I have just told myself what I have the ability to become because I'm repeating that behavior. Instinctively, human beings are driven by that. We have 5 basic instincts. The first instinct is survival. We'll do anything to survive. We'll tell you, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to eat that. I'm not going to smell that. No, I'm not going to. If your life depended on it, you'll do it. So get past that. Your second instinct is reproduction. We reproduce the trust and the confidence that each success in our life brings by believing that if we do the things we did to achieve what we got, we'll get the same result because it's the same person that's making that choice to do it. So reproduction becomes the reinforcer of our sense of survival. Emotional connection, and this is where we as a people struggle. The empathy and the sympathy. The capacity to understand emotionally what you are going through is the empathy that enables me to have the sympathy to take this journey with you. I've been where you have been. I have survived what you have survived. Let me show you so you can make a choice clearly between this or that. Because that's all it boils down to. In the conditional acknowledgement of a society, the matter of factness of it is always going to be the simplicity of this or that. You're either going to do the things that will elevate you out of your current social situation and circumstance, or you're not. It's just that direct. People don't like to tell themselves that it is, and I've heard it too many times. Yeah, you make it sound so simple because it is. And because it takes that discipline, it drives you right in to the most powerful of our instincts that we have. And that is the one that is sometimes referred to as your thinking and your behavior alignment. There was a French scientist, philosopher, who said, I think, therefore I am. I am, therefore I think. And people lose sight of that. What you think is whom you are, and whom you are is what you think. You reinforce that belief. That is the pivotal point. That's kind of where we are right now as a society. It's oh, no. Oh, no. Really? Yeah. Oh, alright. Exactly. Absolutely. Good night. Alright.